What's up everyone, welcome back to more Reddit stories about Karens, crazy people, and all that kind of stuff. Hope you're all doing awesome, and as usual, we got some more Reddit posts to check out today. So feel free to share your thoughts about today's stories down in the comments and let's get into it. Kept calling me sir on the phone, so I gave him a taste of his own medicine. I'm a female, but I'm often mistaken for a man when speaking on the phone. One day I called my insurance company for support, and the representative kept addressing me as sir. I politely corrected him, letting him know that I was a woman, but he continued to say, "Yes, sir." So I decided to turn the tables. As the conversation went on, I started responding to him with, "Yes, ma'am." After a few times, he finally snapped and said, "I'm not a woman, I'm a man," but I just kept saying, "Yes, ma'am." Eventually, he got so frustrated that he hung up. To this day, I still laugh hard whenever I think about that conversation. My friend got arrested and I pretended I didn't know him. I went to California in the USA back in 2014. I was supposed to go with my mate D from uni. When we met up at the airport, he wanted to finish a bottle of vodka he brought before we went in. I took a shot for the fun and he finished the rest. The security line took ages and he was getting a bit agitated with us having to wait. A security guard had to tell him to chill out even. We made it through to the gate and he was being obnoxious. I kept telling D to calm down and stop acting dumb. When they started boarding the flight, our boarding group got called and he couldn't find his boarding pass. The people were nice and just told him to stand to the side and look for it. He didn't want to move from the counter though and started causing a fuss. He called one of the workers a C-word and was getting aggressive. Another person came and told him he was too drunk to fly. D started yelling angrily that he was going to the United States. I was cringing from his actions and stepped back and acted like I wasn't with him. The staff were telling him he could be on the next flight tomorrow, but he was screaming and I saw police rolling up in a golf cart. They started talking to him and one of them asked if I knew him. I told him I didn't. They moved him to the side and the line started moving again, so I had to get on the plane. I looked back just in time to see him fighting with the police, and they had him on the ground. I didn't hear from him for 2 days, but he got arrested for being a menace and injuring an officer during his arrest. He ended up not coming on the trip. He got a refund from the airline, but a last-minute ticket on a different airline was almost triple the price. I got the whole hotel room to myself and had a great time in Cali by myself. I haven't talked to him for years, but last time I did, he still thought he was in the right and was arrested for no reason. I will tell you how this deal works. One early spring, I decided to sell our travel trailer. It was only a few years old, looked new inside and out, priced right, and it was prime time of year to sell. I knew it would be gone after a showing or two. The first family shows up after an odd phone call. The wife does all the talking, but made it clear that her husband, Glenn, makes the decisions in the family. She asks a ton of questions on the phone so she could give the info to Glenn. Glenn is in the room with her as this is going on. Weird, but whatever. They roll in and I meet Glenn. He tries to avoid eye contact and is trying to play a power game. The wife and kids are in love with the camper, polite and friendly. Glenn is a dick. As I answer his questions, he occasionally smirks. At this point, I am not interested in selling him dog crap fresh from my backyard, but I am not lowering myself to his behavior. I give him the respect he does not deserve, taking the high road since his poor wife and kids don't need to see me telling him to get the F out. Eventually Glenn says, "I am going to be giving you X dollars. We will be back next weekend with the check." He barks at his wife and kids to get back in the car. I tell him that I did not agree to any price. Maybe it will still be around next weekend, maybe not. He smirks again and drives away. Glenn's price was exactly what I would have accepted from any potential buyer who was not a dick. At that point, I was clear about one thing. Glenn will never end up with my camper because, well, you know. The next day, a couple shows up to look at the trailer. They are slack-jawed at the price and condition and ask what I will take for it, as they can meet me later in the day with cash. I offer to sell it to them for Glenn's price. A few hours later, I have a fat stack of $100 bills in hand, and they leave with the trailer thrilled with the deal. The next Friday, just as I expected, Glenn's abused wife calls. She tells me that they got a loan and want to pick the trailer up tomorrow. I play dumb and ask what she means. After she explains it again, I drop a bomb. "So sorry, but it is gone." I tell her that all Glenn had to do was respectfully offer the amount he told me I would be taking. then leave a deposit check and you would be picking up your camper tomorrow. I reminded her that she was standing there when I told Glenn that we had not agreed to a price, and it was still very much for sale to whomever wanted it. Finally, I told her to make sure that Glenn knows that it sold for his price the next day. They broke the law, fired me, and lost everything. Oops. They fired me for breaking a policy I never signed, so I got their license pulled. I used to work at a shop that sold alcohol, among other things. It wasn't the worst job, but management was sloppy. No proper training, barely any oversight, and definitely no paperwork confirming we'd been taught the legal stuff, like checking ID properly. One day I was suddenly called in and sacked for a breach of company policy, because I supposedly didn't follow the ID check process correctly. The twist? I'd never been trained. Not once. Not on paper, not in person. They had nothing to show I ever even saw the policy. I asked for proof, and they couldn't provide it because it didn't exist. So I left, quietly, professionally, and then I reported them to the proper licensing authority. Turns out selling alcohol without ensuring staff are trained in ID checks is a serious breach, especially if you can't prove the training ever happened. Their license to sell alcohol? Gone. Now they can't sell booze at all. I'm also seeking compensation because getting fired over a rule you were never taught isn't just shady, it's illegal. They tried to play me. My neighbor slashed my tires and is vandalizing stuff. Background. My girlfriend and I live in an upper duplex of a house that we rent. Since we moved in a year ago, our downstairs neighbor, whom also rent, and our boyfriend and girlfriend, have been pushy and controlling of shared spaces. We let most of this slide at first to keep the peace, as we weren't trying to start anything, and most of their behavior wasn't life-altering for us, just annoying and inconvenient for the most part. We have 2 dogs whom were both okayed by the apartment management to live there, and when we toured the place, it was made clear that they could have access to the shared fenced-in backyard. We haven't really let them in the backyard, however, since we moved, because in the warmer months, we know it's possible for them to tear up a yard playing with each other. So we took them on walks a majority of the time. However, we live in Wisconsin, so once it gets cold, the sidewalks and streets are heavily salted, and our dogs have had problems with that before. So during the winter, when at our previous places, we start letting them out in the backyard, especially since the ground is then frozen so they can't mess the lawn up. Anyways, 2 weeks ago when I first let them out in the backyard, I was confronted by the boyfriend telling me we can't be letting the dogs back there. I said, says who? Because our property manager clearly told us when we moved in that they could. To which he said property management told them that they couldn't. Well, I reached out to management and they let us know that we were definitely right and could be back there, and that they had never told him that they couldn't. In this moment, I also addressed that they have had a lot of their stuff on our side of the basement as defined by management. They came through to confirm, and after doing so, sent our downstairs neighbors an email letting them know that they had to move their stuff to their side, as well as giving them a notice that the dogs can indeed be in the back. They sent a not-so-happy email back to them and a not-so-happy text to us. Nothing threatening, but letting us know they were not happy and wished we had gone to them first, which we had, instead of reaching out to our property manager who they hated. Also, just a little side note, our management does not like them at all and have had their own share of problems with them that they've even told us about. The night after this, I notice my car gets keyed in our backyard. I'm almost certain it's them as I have 0 enemies at the moment, and I find it hard to believe a random came through the alley only wanting to key my car, especially since my car brand is a hot commodity in my city to get stolen, which I would think would be of much greater value to someone. Anyways, I had no proof, so I was forced to just chalk it up to frustration. In the next week, however, we noticed that our washing machine got damaged, with the door part being physically broken off. They have their own washer on their side, and a couple things of ours we felt went missing in the basement, tools and such. We let our management know about all of this, to which they offered to take $150 off our next month's rent so that we could get cameras to put up to protect our stuff. We put a camera up in the basement facing our things and a camera in our shared garage. And lo and behold, not even 24 hours after putting the cameras up, we catch the girlfriend downstairs slashing the tire of my girlfriend's car in our shared garage, clear as day. Let me be clear, we have not done anything illegal to warrant this behavior whatsoever, and it was honestly frightening for us to see. We thought we were being paranoid putting the cameras up in the first place. We called management and the cops immediately. When the cops came, they issued her a ticket for property damage valued at $200 for the tire. They went to go serve her downstairs, but she was either hiding or not home. Our property manager let us know that they would be sending them an eviction notice immediately on Monday. But the thing is, with our rental rules where we live, once you send an eviction notice in the winter months, a tenant then has 60 days to move out. We expressed our worry of having to live with them for the next 2 months to the cops that came, and they suggested to get a restraining order on them. The way it works in our city is that we have to go online on a wait list that opens on Monday morning to file one, so that's what we will be doing. The most unbelievable part about all of this, though, might be that the woman who did the tire slashing is a social worker in our public school district. But even besides us having great contempt for them now, I nor anyone I have talked to thinks that a person like her exhibiting this type of behavior should be around kids, especially in that type of role nonetheless. Our neighbors not downstairs are not very fond of them either, and have warned us about watching for them to mess with our dogs, such as poisoning them or whatnot. Apparently our neighbors are already speculative against them, and there was some sketchy stuff done by them that caused the people that lived in our unit previous to us to move out. We have actually in person heard them bringing up poisoning our next door neighbor's dog because they hate her for barking too much, and this sentiment did not sound like it came off as a joke to us. My manager always called for a 20-minute team meeting after work, unpaid, so I finally had enough. By the way, this is not in America, so US labor laws don't apply here. This was a small team of 10 people that the manager was assigned to, myself included. I was the last person to be hired on the team. Everybody was my senpai. And on the first day I worked there, they called a team meeting after work. We log off our computers at 4:55 p.m., go to the meeting room, and we clocked out at 5:15 p.m., every day like clockwork. I said, no problem, that's an extra 2.5 hours on a bi-weekly paycheck. And we didn't have to do any actual work except listen. When my first payday came, I saw my full 80 hours, but the extra 2.5 hours were nowhere to be found. So I asked a couple of guys if they only got paid 80 hours too. They all confirmed it. We were not getting paid for these meetings. The shift ends, and once again the manager called for the daily team meeting, and to log off at 4:55 p.m. then head to the meeting room. I do so. And so I sit there for 5 minutes. As soon as it hits 5 p.m., I get up and say I need to be somewhere important, with everyone's eyes on me. The manager says, okay. I leave the room, clock out, and go home. The next day I do the same, and again and again. The manager never stops me. Then the manager pulls me to the side one day and asks, what's this important thing that I need to get to after work every day? And I tell him it's a personal matter, and he leaves it at that. Pretty soon it catches on. The other guys start leaving right after me. And eventually, within a matter of days of me starting to leave at 5, everyone else started doing it too. The manager started scheduling the meetings for 4:40 p.m. All it took was one person to not take this crap anymore. Anyway, friends, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching. As always, I do appreciate it. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already for more Reddit content like this, and drop a comment down below. So take care, stay tuned for more, and I'll see you next time.